Hi everybody, we're getting ready to get started, just waiting for a few more people. Let me know if you can hear me okay and where you're watching from today. Okay, guys, fantastic. We're getting ready to get started. Hello from Switzerland and New York and LA. Thank you so much. Dan and I are ready to get going, so we are going to jump right in and let's do it. Okay, I hope everybody can see us. This is Dan Montgomery. I'm Michelle Maddox with Imagine Products. We are doing our Ask Us Anything on workflows today regarding offloading, transcoding, and archiving. Just go ahead and shoot me a message in the chat that you guys can see us and hear both Dan and I. Say hi, Dan.
Hi.
Great. I see.
We're all working from home, by the way.
We are. We're all safe and sound at home in Indianapolis. It's a beautiful day, as you can see. So as soon as I can get somebody to confirm that you guys can see us and hear both of us, then we'll get started. I don't want anybody to miss out on anything. Hello, Denmark. Hello, Colorado. Very exciting that everybody is joining our very first Ask Us Anything. So we just really wanted to kind of take this opportunity while people are at home exploring their workflows and their options. They've got plenty of time to think about it. Dan and I just wanted to jump on and kind of offer some of our expertise that we have in the field and just kind of, pass it along to you guys. Great. We see in here. Okay, good. Thank you so much, Real Samantha Brown. I appreciate that. So we get a lot of questions, and a lot of times they're the exact same. I just want to make sure that, we're giving you guys that information. So we thought we'd just jump on and share. I've got a question here that we've got ready, but please feel free to, add yours into the chat and we'll get to them as soon as we can. We're going to be on for about an hour. We'll just kind of go from there. All right, so our first question we got in an email yesterday, and we get this question or something similar to it a lot. The question is, or the statement is, I was wondering if my workflow is appropriate. Video card offload to my internal drive, then transfer files from internal drive to external. I tried offloading from video card to external, and 120 gigabytes of footage from Blackmagic was taking about 100 minutes to transfer. Is that normal? Unfortunately, I was only running the file sum check. Dan, do you want to talk about how his workflow, he can improve it and maybe give some tips and workflow connections in general?
Well, first off, you should probably mention that Shotput Pro is over 10 years old now. We've been doing this for quite a while and learned a lot over the years, different operating systems and different camera formats and all that kind of stuff. So we have a lot of background knowledge about all this stuff. But his first question, maybe his last question first, is that normal? No, that's pretty slow. I forget the first part of it already. He was doing 120 megs. I know that part. He wanted to transfer. He thought the question was, should I transfer to my internal drive and then to the external? Usually that's a bad idea because, most laptops, unless you have all SSD, if it's spinning media at all or, spinning disk, they're like 5,400 RPM and they're sort of slower than most media that you have. Cards are typically, they're random access, so they're acting like an SSD and they can be pretty fast. much, much faster throughput than your drive can handle. So in any copy situation, you always want to look for what's the bottleneck. And copying to an internal drive and then external drive, there's no real advantage in doing anything like that as far as extra, you're just adding extra steps. Um, our software is designed to control multiple inputs and outputs simultaneously. So you could be reading from one card and copying to multiple output drives at the same time. Now, it's going to thread those things, those activities, but you keep in mind whichever one is slowest. If you had a fast drive and a slow drive, you can't finish the copy until the slowest drive is done. So you want to keep that in mind as well. The other thing I'd tell you is it often matters, or your bottleneck is usually something simple like cables or the ports you're using, or daisy chaining. Generally, on the laptops, especially Mac laptops, they only have one USB port, and so, or bus, I should say. And that means that anytime you plug in multiple USB devices, it's splitting the throughput, or the bandwidth. So you don't want to put too many things on the same bus if you can avoid it. So it's better to have, let's say, if it's a USB card reader, then connect your hard drives via Thunderbolt instead of USB, that kind of thing. Another possibility for slowness that could be causing problems is your cables. If it's a USB cable, make sure it's a USB 3 cable, not a USB 2 cable. That'll keep you down at 20 megs per second instead of, way up there at 300 and better. You don't want to power drives or card readers from the ports either if you can avoid that. It's better to not be drawing power from the computer. It's better to have it line powered if that's an option, if it has a wall wart that you can plug in, transformer, get power someplace else to power the devices, the hard disks and the drivers. His example of
120 gigabytes.
120 megs. That's like 20 megs per second. So that's a red flag that something's really wrong. That's like USB 2 speeds. So the first thing I'd look at is cables. Next thing I'd be looking at is, again, the power situations, what's your slowest drive, those kind of issues. Generally making 2 copies at the same time, doesn't slow it down a great deal. Some of the things that do take time is verification process, because you're asking it to read back all the files off of the output drives to get that checksum value and compare it to the original. So yeah, it takes somewhat longer, but not double.
Well, and it's really important. I know that you and I always really recommend using checksums in any situation, right? I mean, that's kind of the whole point, is to verify that you're getting everything moved from point A to point B. So it might add some time, but the security, at least from my point of view, and what I always tell people, is the security outweighs the time it's going to take you. Obviously, that's not true in every scenario, but the checksums are so important. And that actually might be a really good thing to talk about next, is how do people choose checksums, and how do you know which one is the best one for you? We always get a lot of questions on checksums.
Well, XX hash is the fastest that we're offering right now. It was designed specifically for the M&E business. It's 64-bit, so it's faster than like MD5 was 32-bit. And so it takes advantage of some of the newer technologies to really screen. Now, the question really comes down to, do you have to deliver that? Is there somebody that's demanding that you give them a checksum report? If so, they may specify what type. MD5 is very common because it's been out there longest. A lot of workflows are wrapped around that.
Right.
But it really one over the other isn't really. They're just different types. There's some speed differences, like I just explained, but for the most part, the security issue is they're all virtually about the same. You're talking astronomical, you know, possibility of you copying something and it telling you it's okay and it's not. So that just doesn't happen with checksums.
Yeah.
With file size stuff, it could happen because file size, you're relying on the OS to tell you, yep, I copied it and it's okay. Well, usually that's okay, but
Well,
but if it's important stuff, if it's important video, important files, then you want to make sure that byte for byte is exactly the same.
right. And correct me if
And
I'm
a lot of
wrong.
Stephanie,
Correct me if I'm
yeah,
wrong,
go
but
ahead.
I think the way that you guys explained it to me when I started with Imagine 6 years ago was, your computer might say, yeah, you've got space to fill these 10 gigabytes. Yeah, we copied it, but in actuality, only like 9.6 was copied over. Well, what happened to the other 0.4? There's no verification. There's no way to say, yeah, it did. But the computer might say, yep, we moved everything. We copied it. It's good to go. And that may not be true. So that was something that was really good for me to hear. It made all the checksum, information makes sense to me. The other thing I'll say about checksums is a couple years ago at IBC, Dan and I learned that some checksums are not widely used in different countries. I know the UK, as far as I know, still really prefers MD5. A lot of insurance companies have an opinion on something, so it's really a good idea before you choose your checksum to find out all those different parameters. What is your client expecting? What's the insurance company expecting? What's the DP expecting? Things like that. Just ask around. Don't assume. But if you get to make the choice, then XX hash slightly faster than MD5, but not too much.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go to another question we've got from Tom Samuel. What is a great solution archive footage and other files for long-term, maybe NAS? What kind of drives are we recommending to archive footage, Dan?
Hmm. Define long term. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're really talking years and years, drives really aren't the best way to do that because they're sort of like car batteries. You know, they're designed to fail over time. They're going to fail, especially spinning media. 5 years max on spinning media. SSDs have a longer shelf life, they say, but it's nothing like an LTO tape or something like that. So yeah, there's all this discussion these days about cloud storage and do the trade-offs on the cost versus need for that instant access or the time it takes to upload and download. Um, Probably LTO tapes are still the cheapest way to go as far as putting something on a very long-term media. And when I say long-term, they're saying upwards of 30 years shelf life on a tape, on media tape. And that's a lot of assumptions behind that it's sitting on a tape on a shelf someplace in a reasonable environment and not, being used very much. Um, but, you know, all this stuff over time, if you can't afford LTO, then yeah, I would be stacking SSDs up instead of spinning drives. Uh, just my opinion. SSDs have dropped so much in the last 5 years in price that they're becoming more efficient and doable.
Great. I'm going to follow that up with Tom's other question. He says, can you use Shotput Pro to archive or is pre-roll post better? Well, there are definitely some differences between Shotput Pro and pre-roll post. Pre-roll post takes into the consideration the LTFS that you need to write to an LTO tape. So without it, you're going to have a lot of thrashing back and forth on your drive, which is really bad. Shotput cannot help you with any of that. Pre-roll is going to write to the tape in a way that is going to preserve the tape and the deck in as best way as possible. So no, I would not recommend using Shotput Pro. The other thing is there's some illegal characters and things like that. Pre-roll post is going to take into account those illegal characters, whereas Shotput Pro will not. So there's definitely some advantages. Pre-roll post also has it creates a database of all the tapes that you make for retrieval. You don't get that in shot put either. So those are just a couple of the differences. I would definitely look into the demo of pre-roll post before I tried shot put. So
yeah, I absolutely don't use shot put for LTFS though.
Yeah.
That's not a good idea.
Not a good idea. Okay. Peter says, any plans for the app Imagine HQ to be developed for Android? Peter, what a great question. This is actually a really good segue into something that Dan and I. Dan and I have been talking about this a lot.
We could use a developer.
Right. Dan and I have been talking about this a lot, and lately, internally, we've been working on our next big solution. Some of you probably know it's coming, maybe you don't, but our cloud solution is coming, and we're actually going to revamp the iPhone app, and we are going to release the cloud solution and the phone app about the same time, and it should work nicely on all phones going forward. So I don't think we have a timeline just yet, but it should be soon. Dan, you want to add?
Yeah, the way the cloud, our cloud system is more than just storage. It has
Right.
a lot of communication things in it, a lot of database indexing, searching, proxies, thumbnails, uploading your reports, keeping track of all your, an audit trail of everything you've ever done, all those kind of things. So it's a rather complex system, is why it's taken us a good long time to get it out there, and we want to make sure it's right. But as far as this question, it will have, the cloud part will have a portal that you could access from any phone without even having an app on the phone to get in and see, real-time status of offloads that are going on, and also get into other things like historically, what did I do all day, what, yesterday, or this whole project, and share that information with other people and those kind of things. As far as cloud stuff, cloud's been coming for a long time. We've all seen it. We worked with Frame.io to implement that into ShotPut and some of our other apps. Well over a year ago, we started with them. And part of it is we wanted to understand how they did things and help them, in ways that we could do some things that they couldn't do. For example, we knew how to deal with raw footage, raw as in the 150,000 individual frame type format, and be able to turn that into proxies and upload those, which is pretty hard to do in a cloud situation. You can't really upload all those little files. You got to deal with it on a local level and then shoot it up. So we've been doing cloud-related things for quite a while. It's just all coming together here soon, hopefully.
That kind of goes in line with Tom Moser's question. With work from home, do your products assist in making sure media drives in different locations stay the same info, a sort of some check but remote? So yeah, currently our apps don't do anything like that, but that's one of the goals with the cloud, is that you'll be able to monitor or work with your team from anywhere in the world, and multiple people can be using the same cloud, and you'll still all be able to collaborate together. So I think that answers Tom's question. Not yet, but soon we hope to.
Yeah. One thing we should emphasize, Michelle, is that our cloud, at least a first cut of it, is not housing large data.
Yeah.
We're not reselling storage space for your media. What we're saying is keeping track of all the stuff of that you've done, and pushing it around in an index, if you will, to all your activities and things like that. If I understand this last question, it sounds more like syncing, or knowing, where did the media go and where has it been pushed to different places. And yeah, you're right. The cloud thing does all that stuff as far as, and not only that, but you'll be able to tell where a particular clip has been used anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'll be a really nice feature.
Yep.
Definitely. Okay, so let's see. Real Samantha Brown says, I produced a travel show for PBS. We love PBS. Had big problems trying to do transfers in the field with Windows laptop. Do you recommend hardware? Had better luck with Mac, but still can't believe Windows can't work. Yeah, Windows.
Did you have, well, I guess some questions.
Right, there are some
Did you have the
follow-ups.
latest version of ShotPut?
Yeah, that would
Yeah,
be our number
because
one question.
Windows 10, there, I will say this, we did discover that there have been some versions or builds of Windows that Microsoft published that didn't work so well. And so it's important that you keep your OS up to date.
Yeah.
The latest stuff seems to work fine. We have a lot of people using Windows Shotput.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, it's just as solid as Mac. I don't know what other kind of problems you had.
Yeah.
But
Samantha, I would update your OS, update your shot put. If you're still having issues, reach out to us and maybe we can help you work through that with your specific workflow. But as far as shot put's concerned, they are the same Mac versus Windows. So
all of our apps have diagnostic logs built in.
She's saying it was an OS issue. Yeah. So I would update.
You can send us the OS, or
Yeah.
you can send us the diagnostic log, and we can tell you what's going on. What some people don't realize with ShotPut is that it has an automated retry function, and so if it's having intermittent connectivity to a drive or something like that is going on, bad cables or something, it's going to keep trying it over and over again. Well, it doesn't really tell you that. And so your impression is that things are slow, but in fact, what's happening is the software is really struggling trying to, complete the task. So the diagnostics would let us know what's going on, and they're not that hard to read. You can actually, a user can open them and poke around and see some things, search for the word error and see where it's, you can kind of interpret what's going on.
I think they're really hard to read.
Well,
I think it's like Greek or something. I can't read it.
I'll say this. The Mac one is easier to read than the Windows, because the Windows one has a lot of different things inside of different things. But yeah, if you search within it, you can find those kind of issues.
Yeah, or reach out to us. We're happy to help as well. So we're getting a lot of questions, so I'm sorry if I'm skipping around, but I'm trying to do my best. Good. Let's see. Trying to streamline backing up and ingesting to offline from 4K on cards to a Cineform proxy in Premiere. Do you have an integration of ShotPut with Adobe Media Encoder? Wait, these might be two separate questions. Do you have an integration of ShotPut Pro with Adobe Media Encoder or other workflow that would give my data wrangler give me my data wrangle to backups and to proxies with limited babysitting and keyboard clicks? Not with Adobe, but we do connect ShotPut Pro with Frame.io. It's possible with Adobe.
Transcode.
Yeah, we have our own transcode.
Cineform, I believe, is GoPro's, right? That's GoPro's format, I believe.
I don't know. Yeah.
But if you take a look at Prime Transcoder, the demo for it, it can run concurrently with ShotPut, and so while you're offloading, you make a watch folder in Prime Transcoder to watch one of your output locations, and as the media comes in, it can process the proxies for you and do that automatically. But yeah, you're right. Frame.io is another way that ShotPut can shoot up. It creates proxies in the background, H.264 proxies, and pushes it to your account, whatever project you select in Frame.io.
Yeah. We had a question that went right along with that. Oh, hi there. Is there any chance Prime Transcoder will come to Windows? I don't want to say never, but probably not. No.
Well, actually, we did have a transcoder for Windows years ago, and but Microsoft, like Apple, changed their whole AV foundation underneath, and it used to be direct show driven, and nowadays it's not. It's not impossible, but honestly, it's probably not something that's going to be high on our list of things to do. I just wanted to touch on the Adobe Media Encoder, by the way. Prime should be much faster than that because it's a newer application that was built on the latest Apple AV foundations. It doesn't have a lot of legacy stuff in it to slow it down. Now, that said, Adobe may have upped their game in the last year or two. It wouldn't surprise me that
they always are,
maybe
right?
doing better than they. Yeah, well, they should be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
All right, Dan, this is going to be your most favorite question of the entire day.
my dog's name is Buddy. Oh, wait.
When pre-roll post gets to the writing the indexed portion of the job process, it seems to stop and get hung up. What's going on?
It's hung up.
It's hung up. That's it. End of AMA. Sorry, bye. No, just kidding. Just kidding.
Well, that sounds like you're talking about the Mac version.
Probably.
What really happened with pre-roll post is you got to realize that the OS or that application is 8-9 years old at least the foundations for it, and it's been tweaked and added to and all along the way. And at the same time, Apple's changed the operating system over and over and over again, and the whole design of the thing was meant to use the LTFS, the user environment that makes a tape mount like a hard drive. So you have a Finder user environment that writes a top Finder that is letting you communicate to the tape drive and the tape and all that kind of stuff. So there's several layers of things going on in there. But originally, when we first designed this app, tapes were 4 gig. They weren't very big. And so as they've grown in size over time, now people are trying to slam, 8, 12 terabytes at a time through into it. And it was never designed, pre-roll post was never designed with the idea that, if there's a problem, we want to just keep on going, note that and keep on going, and then we'll circle back and try to fix it. It had the concept of, if something goes wrong, just stop, because you're making an archive and you want to make sure that everything's right. And so the attitude was, you're going to want to start all over if something goes wrong, which generally was things like a power outage or a glitch in connecting to your drives or something like that. But the hang thing, I think, is related to the volume that you're trying to back up all at the same time. That it's probably something that's OS related. If it's one of the newer OSs, that it's trying to, it's already completed all the copies. What it's telling you is, I made the tape, it's all done. Now I'm just trying to update the database, and I'm having trouble triggering that activity. So we did put out an FAQ, I think, to tell you how to work around that if that happens to you, which it doesn't happen that often.
No.
But if it does happen to you, to unmount the tape and turn around and manually put it into the database. You can do that with any tape. It's just right click on it in your retrieve area and tell it to import it. And what that does is it reads the index on the tape and adds it to the database. So anyway,
yeah, that's a good fix.
Short, yeah, we're working on a newer version that is more Catalina driven, and that hopefully will be available later this year. That would eliminate some of this stuff. What we're doing is your database is going to be the cloud database. It's going to push it there instead of locally. So that means that the inventory for the tape gets pushed up to your cloud index, like all the other stuff we're talking about.
Yeah, cloud will be really helpful for all of our applications, especially archiving. That'll be a really good one.
It'll give you a lot more search options, a lot faster searching,
much faster.
thumbnails, proxies, all sorts of things that'll be much better than having a local database on a computer.
Yeah. So Gregory has a follow-up question to the Prime Windows question. He said, will Prime Transcoder work well with Avid, i.e. Avid bins? I know that Prime Transcoder works with Avid. I don't know what an Avid bin is, though. Dan, do you?
Well, I think he's talking about basically the project that has all the media for your project. And
gotcha.
The bin for that edit session. It depends on the format, you know. Avid, the last time I looked at Avid, it was all MXF driven. And if that's the case, then no problem. You know, we understand MXF, we can import output. In fact, we're an Avid developer for Prime, has some of the AAF stuff in it, and it doesn't have the full gambit because quite frankly, the development tools they gave us were antiquated. And and like I said, Prime is based on all the newest stuff, and so it doesn't use QuickTime. It doesn't use, you know, QuickTime components and things like that. So it sort of depends. I would just, as always, try the demo.
Yeah.
Just try it. It's free. Process on it and see if it'll happen. I'm sure it'll work with your source material. I don't know what Avid has done to it after that.
Yeah. Always try the demo for our products before you purchase one and make sure it's exactly what you want. We are happy to answer questions, even if you have not purchased yet. We are here to help. You know, sales are obviously important to any business, but especially Dan and I, we really value our customers, building that relationship. You know, we did this, you know, Ask Us Anything because we wanted to kind of pass on that knowledge that we've gotten. Dan's been doing this for 30 years, guys. He, you know, knows a lot about a lot. So not me. I just know how to run everything.
Yeah.
So
I've forgotten all the analog stuff. How about that?
That's okay. Hopefully, Gregory, that answers your question. Try the demo. Reach out to us, though. We've got a contact us form that goes directly to Dan and I. One of us will always answer those emails. It's usually Dan, which is who you want answering those emails.
Our support ticket, the reason we like people to send an email or fill out a support ticket is that allows us to easily share it with other people in the office if we need to go get some more help on understanding something or looking at a diagnostic log or any of those things. And it's a follow-up way, it's much better than the old ways of emails or whatever, or phone calls and things, because then you didn't have a tracking. You didn't know if you answered everybody's question, and if the new question comes up and it's one we've answered before, you can always look it up and find out what did we do, what version, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, the email is really, really helpful because we can send you guys links and you can send us your diagnostics and things. So yeah, anytime anybody has a question, shoot us an email. We're very quick to respond.
If you email to support@imagineproducts.com, it opens a ticket for you in our help desk.
Yeah. Okay, what else do we want to talk about, Dan? I think that we've answered all the questions. If I've missed your question, please type it in the queue again so that I can see it. There's a lot of people chatting back and forth, which is fantastic. I'm so glad that we're able to connect people and get some questions answered and just kind of continue this conversation while a lot of people are at home. I know things are starting to get going again, which is great as long as we can all stay safe. So, we're here to answer the questions. If you guys think this was successful, we might jump on and do it again. Dan, is there any other words of wisdom, questions that we get all the time? Anything else you want to pass on?
Well, we do have those FAQs on the webpage.
We do have great FAQs, yeah.
Well,
Oh,
they really are what people ask for.
Alani, you're right. I'm sorry. I think I did miss this before. What's the best way to do cascading offloads in ShotPut Pro like SilverStack?
Mhm. I guess the first question is, where are you cascading? Because if you're saying I have, you know, I need to make 3 copies. If all of them are the same speed, then you don't need to cascade. You can do them all at the same time. If it's, oh, I've got one drive that's super slow and the other one's fast, or I've got a faster one and then multiple slower ones, um, then you really should be going ahead and doing, the fast one first and then copying from that. Like SilverStack, we also support MHLs. And MHL is short for Media Hash List. And actually, I think Pomfort designed that. We've been working with Pomfort over the last year,
Yeah,
basically.
it's been a while now.
With a new ASC initiative on uh, a new improved version of the MHL that can handle more things like large directories and instead of a sidecar um, file that has that information, the checksum information that is inside of it, um, things like that. And the whole idea of the MHL thing is that once you have that file, you can always match back to the original. You know that what all the checksums were, what all the paths were, what all, everything that matches back to the original. So my point is that if you make a first copy to a faster drive, and then you're copying from the copy, I would be using MHLs because that way I know that all the way down the line, all of them have the exact same thing. Um, One of our apps, our newer apps, is called TrueCheck, and that has the ability to uh, drop an MHL file in it to test it, to test that the media associated with it is still intact and matching back to the originals. So you can also generate MHLs with that app after the fact. So it's sort of like ShotPut, except that you don't have to copy things. You can test and make reports or manifests for drives. And here's a report of all the stuff in this drive, or compare 2 different drives, things like that, without making copies, just looking at the data and figuring out what the checksums are, stuff like that.
Cool. Tom wants to know if we recommend a specific SSD for backing up.
No.
Mm-mm.
uh, we work with various companies. We work with GTech and Seagate and um, different ones like that. But uh, I don't think we're in a position to say one over the other. I don't know that there's big reliability differences and stuff. Some of them may be more rugged than others for field use, but it's not like the beginning days of SSDs when, you know, um, there was a whole thing about bit rot and how it was going to, you could only access it so many times and it was no good and all this kind of stuff. I mean, we progressed way beyond that. But yeah, we're big fans of both of those companies, both GTech and we'll see.
Yeah. Samantha Brown wants to know, how about a USB hub brand?
I started to touch on that earlier with the guy's question about speed. You need to be careful about hubs,
Yeah.
and especially with the newer Mac laptops, with the Thunderbolt 3 connections, you generally have to have some kind of a docking station to get ports for other things to connect things to. And we have noticed that sometimes that, those kind of devices can slow things down,
Right.
as opposed to a direct connection. So, for example, we usually recommend Sonnet technology card readers because they have the latest and greatest Thunderbolt 3 certified devices that can plug directly into your computer without having to have a translator docking station in between. But as far as hubs go, if you're talking about splitting things, you really need to be careful about the power. A hub, you almost always want to have it plugged into the wall because it's tough for it to get enough power coming out of your computer to pass it on down the line, especially if anything connected to it requires power.
Okay, then we've got another question that said, I've had a few LTO tapes fail while writing a second job. Any suggestions?
Writing a second job? You mean you're adding more?
I think he's adding,
tape?
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever heard of that, to be honest. What you have to realize is the way LTO works is as soon as you mount that tape, assuming that you're going to add more to it, it's in write mode, and anytime a tape's in write mode, it's dangerous. If you have a power glitch or something, you can corrupt the index on the tape, or, things can get damaged. But in general, it shouldn't be a big thing. What you don't want to do is leave a tape in the drive unattended for days and days or whatever. I mean, you should always get it out of there once you're done with it, because the heads are engaged, because you don't want that to be in a write mode that it can get damaged. But unfortunately, there's not. There are some recovery tools for LTO, and that's in pre-roll post Mac. But what that does is it simply resets the index on the tape back to the last good one. So it's assuming that you have multiple things written to it, and you can, ignore the later ones and go back to an earlier one.
Okay, cool. I think that wraps us up, guys. If there's any other final questions, put them in the chat now, or forever hold your peace. Like I said, we might jump back on here and do this again, particularly if you guys found it useful. We're always happy to try to share some of our knowledge and answer questions. And, this industry, things are changing so fast all the time. It's good to have these sort of resources. There's a lot of different webinars out right now, especially with people being at home, to try to talk about some of this stuff. We've got a lot of FAQs and tutorials. We write some blogs. I am always trying to share different people's workflows. I just had one of our customers, Silver Speakman, she just did a fantastic video on her workflow. I really encourage everybody to watch it. If you're interested in doing a workflow like that, we are always happy to take more. I think people are really, really, really intrigued on how it works and how they can make their process better. So if you're interested in doing something like that, reach out to us. Like Dan mentioned, our email address is support@imagineproducts.com. That'll always get one of us. I don't see any more questions, so I think we're going to sign off. Oh, go ahead, Dan.
You mentioned tutorials.
Yeah.
I would really encourage people to go look at the video tab on our webpage, or on any product page toward the bottom. There's tabs for the videos that are specific to that product. A lot of people sometimes have trouble finding those, but they're all on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
But don't be afraid of the tutorials. They're very short, to the point. They're not boring, go on for hours. They're 3-4 minutes. They're
right.
Get to the point, show you how to do it. Get on with life.
And it's not uncommon for me to jump on and do a video real fast. If we've got a question that we keep getting, emails for, if it's just easier for me to show you a video of how to do something versus trying to type it all out, I've done that many times. So, look around, see what you need. And if you can't find it, reach out to us. So, well, I think this is a good way to end. We've got our last comment that says, thanks, guys. Was very interesting and perfectly hosted. Stay safe. Thank you so much.
Hosted.
Perfectly hosted. Yay.
I should have got my umbrella.
I know. Well, this was our first one, and we just were very happy that, you guys jumped on and hung out with us for a while, and it sounds like some people learned some stuff. So thank
Good.
you so much. We're going to sign off now, and stay safe and healthy out there, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.